When you look at the VR landscape today, obviously Morpheus, Oculus, we have HTC Vive coming out. How you guys work together? Because Oculus said they look at you guys as colleagues when it comes to VR.
Right. I mean, VR is, we want everyone to think VR is a good thing, and they're making high quality stuff, which is great. And we're also our own platform, so we're a little bit aside from them. We have a huge installed base of PlayStation 4s already, and that's probably our biggest strength, I think, in VR as a company, is that we have this installed base, and all you really need to do is add the headset to it. Every single one of those units is the same, so developers can just target a very fixed platform. That's why we don't really see them as competitors, because, first of all, we want VR to succeed as an industry, and also it doesn't directly, they don't directly go up against us, I would say.
And the other space that we're seeing in VR is mobile, with Samsung Gear VR, Merge VR, and other devices, VR1. How do you see mobile potentially introducing people to VR and then migrating to console or PC?
Yeah, mobile is a lot easier way to deploy a VR experience, and you can get kind of a taste of VR very quickly just by putting these things in front of your face and looking around. It doesn't give you the same level of depth, I think, as what we can do on a console or on a PC. And also the interaction model is more challenging with the mobile VR. You don't have hands and controls like that you have in the other systems you already mentioned.
When it comes to the Morpheus, that is really cool that you have the different ways of playing. Can you talk a little bit about that and how important that is, having both controllers but also being able to see your hands if need be?
Yeah, it's really important for our developers that they know the controllers we already have established. So we have a DualShock 4, which every single person who owns a PlayStation 4 has. And that's great for a lot of kind of VR experiences where you're like driving a vehicle, or, maybe a racing game or a mech game like Rigs. And then we have the PlayStation Move, which is a different kind of control where you can have your two hands free separately and do bimodal interaction, and that knowing those two things exist for our developers is huge. They can really target their experience to a known device. And it's great actually to see Oculus, and Valve as well, having these bimodal input devices too. That's great.
When it comes to exploring VR, what remains the challenge of going through levels where you have to walk, or run, or do those types of things?
Yeah, locomotion is still one of the things a lot of developers are experimenting with. We've done things where it's actually, I'm in a research group, so that's one of the areas we focus on a lot is interaction. So one thing we've done is where you can reach into the world and actually just pull it, or you can point somewhere and teleport yourself there. It's important, I think, to have a spatial device a lot of the time so that you can interact with the world, but you don't necessarily have to walk in VR the same way. So I think that is one of the areas that will change the most as more developers work on it. You'll see these things that really work well in VR. I mean, I play a game like Portal, and in Portal you can basically teleport you through these portals. And I think that kind of thing will work well in VR.
So the gameplay experience will evolve because people are used to, for instance, playing Call of Duty, running around, shooting. So the actual VR experience will evolve for the system.
Yeah, I think that in VR you can do anything. I mean, it's like with a virtual experience you can do anything. We're not really limited by the laws of physics. We're used to the laws of physics, but once you have some freedom, I mean, flying is really awesome in VR, and we don't do that by ourselves. So I think that's an example people already understand. They don't understand teleportation as well because they haven't really done that, but it's a really cool thing to be able to say, I want to be over there, and then suddenly you are there. So I think other mechanisms or mechanics like that will evolve. And then we are also still exploring different ways that are more traditional, walking around the world. I mean, there's a first-person shooter experience we're showing here, and also all the vehicle games still work really well. So yeah, it's still a lot of open, fertile ground for developers to find new ideas.
Where do you see VR heading?
I think that next year is going to be a super exciting year when all these systems are coming out and you see what people like and what they don't. And then I think games will be one of the leading charges for VR because game developers already understand how to create interactive experiences. But then I really think VR will broaden into this huge use for all sorts of other industries, and it's great to be at the forefront of that by being in gaming.
Are we heading to Ready Player One?
I don't know. I know there's talks, I've seen talks on creating the metaverse and what is the metaverse and stuff. And definitely multiplayer online VR is a really powerful thing to feel like a person standing next to you and have a conversation with somebody who's, in the real world miles away, but virtually they feel like they're right next to you. That's very powerful. So we'll see.
Is there any going back? I mean, once you make that leap to VR, is there any going back to watching a traditional flat screen?
Oh yeah, I think one of the differences, it's just like movies versus like live theater. They have their different strengths, and with movies you have the cinematographer who can give you exactly the shot he wants to give you, and you can tell a story a certain way that way. But live theater has its own advantage of being able to feel like you're actually there, part of the story almost as it's evolving. So yeah, I don't think it'll displace one. I think it just grew the universe a little bit.